Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Post PhD Directions. And today I have a very special guest. Some of you might know him already from a previous episode. It's Professor Robert Harris, aka Mad Bob. Some of you might have met him on LinkedIn with Mad Bob, which means making a difference. And this is what we're going to talk about today because Bob is a little LinkedIn star. He leverages this platform quite well, I would say. And I think he is very inspiring in the sense that many academics, they don't really know how to feel about LinkedIn and how to use it, if I'm right there or do I belong there. And I think Bob actually has a very inspiring story, and I thought it would be worthwhile sharing how he got started and share some little tips and tricks on how you can get started if you're interested in being a bit more active on LinkedIn and building a network, but it may be in or outside of academia. And with this, welcome, Bob.
Thanks very much. I appreciate you calling me Bob, not Robert. As it's only my mother that calls me Robert nowadays. And it's nice to be able to tell a story about how I became Mad Bob. In order to do that, then you need to know a little bit about me. Those of you who don't know me, and that is I'm a professor of immunotherapy and neurological diseases here at Karolinska Institute in Stockholm, trying to find ways of treating or curing incurable neurodegenerative diseases. So that's what I do as a researcher. And on top of that, I'm also responsible for doctoral education here as Dean of Doctoral Education. And in that role, I get the chance to do lots of leadership training, both here at Karolinska and Sweden and all over the world. So I have an idea about, I've had the privilege of going around the world actually preaching about best practices in doctoral education. And that's really where my starting point is on this journey.
Thanks for the intro. I think it's important to understand where you come from and where you are right now so people can relate to other academics that are in academia who might want to get started on LinkedIn. So can you tell us a little bit about LinkedIn? How did you get started and what motivated you?
Disclosure, I'm a complete social media novice. I've never used social media in all my life. I'm probably the only person in Sweden in my age group that doesn't have a Facebook account. I've never used Instagram. I've never used Twitter or X. I've never had Facebook. So social media, I have no interest and no experience. Other than that, I have two kids who are now 21 and 18 years old. So I've had to learn about TikTok and Instagram just to make sure that I understand what they're getting up to. But other than that, I've had no visibility, no interest, no interaction. That's it. Other than LinkedIn. And when LinkedIn came around so many years ago, I registered for LinkedIn and I put up a small CV, and that's been basically it. I haven't done anything. The only things I posted after many years of doing nothing, the idea was just it would be good to have your professional CV somewhere. And if it's a professional platform, then at least that's a good place to be. But no one's going to look at you if you don't do anything. So other than posting, I had a PhD student graduate or been to this conference, and then there was no information whatsoever. So, I have no experience of dealing with social interactions digitally. That was my starting point.
From what you just said about how you used LinkedIn before you actually leveraged it in its full, it sounds a lot like a lot of academics use it right now. If they go on, maybe they talk about, I've been to this conference, I've published this paper. So I think a lot of academics can relate to this. So what happened? Because now you're out there with Mad Bob, you post quite regularly. So what happened from the Bob who posted about conference to becoming Mad Bob on LinkedIn?
Yeah. So the point, the question that you're really asking is, why would a 58-year-old man start to spend his time posting on LinkedIn? And I think that's a very important starting point to go from. So if we just backtrack a little bit, the previous posts about, I've been here or done that, whatever, that's only interesting to the people that know me, my nearest colleagues. So when it comes to those type of posts, maybe I'd get up to 1,000 views or so. Just really, just the people that know me more than anything. So you're not really making any great waves. But as I said, I've been having the privilege for the last 10, 15 years to go around the world talking about doctoral education, being involved in Orpheus, an international organization for doctoral education, where we really try and devise best practices in doctoral education and try and teach people how to do those things. So it's very much, I've already built up community. I built up a name within the field as being someone. I'm invited a lot to give plenary lectures at education conferences or office conferences, science conferences. So it's like I have a reputation both as a scientist and as a trainer of leadership, and especially, of course, in the doctoral education sphere. And I think that's very important to actually then be able to tell how the story's gone so fast for me. The starting point was actually we started to work with Alma Me, and we started to offer you a platform of professional development at Karolinska, and anything which I am going to release onto my students or staff, then it's something I want to test myself. So I actually did the Alma Me course, and one of the modules was a module about digital presence, and especially focus on LinkedIn. And it was there that I had this eureka moment, that the light bulb went on, and I thought, I could be doing this. I'm someone that people often invite to come and talk, so I obviously have something to say, so why not start to do it digitally? So that was the starting point, and I've had some good coaching from you about how to do or not to do these things, and I've been learning as I've been going. So I started posting in August, late August, so it's been, 6 months now, if my maths is correctly, and, how has it gone? Well, I started posting, I thought it was quite fun, I thought I had these important messages based on what I do teaching-wise that I'd be able to convert to LinkedIn posts, and I suddenly found there are actually people interested in listening to what I wanted to say. So I went from having those 1,000 impressions to suddenly 3,000 or 5,000. I'm thinking, this is really, really going well. And then I posted one about toxic supervisors, and it sort of took off, and I got 150,000 impressions, and I thought, wow, this is amazing, 150,000 people. Isn't that cool? And then another post was the next post is something I feel very strongly about, which is the giving and receiving of professional feedback in academia. It sort of bombed, and I was back down to 3,500. I was like, what's happening here? So I started to experiment with the formats and thinking, well, maybe a picture, they say a picture tells 1,000 words. So let's start using pictures to see if we can hook people. And I started playing around. I used one AI generated image, and otherwise I've been taking existing pictures or making them myself and testing these things, and it didn't seem to be that important. I think it might be a bit more eye-catching, and successively more people or more followers I start to get. So I started getting 100 followers. I was excited. 500, even more excited. 1,000, like, wow, this is amazing. Which isn't really, you're not like a cheap influencer if you've got 1,000 followers. It's a good start for me anyway. I'm up to almost 13,000 at the moment, so I think I'm doing okay. But anyway, so pictures seemed to make a little bit of a difference, but it wasn't really seen to be, but the message was. So then I had an interesting experience where I wrote a post where people considered to be a bit controversial.
Nice. I think there's quite a difference between the posts where you got a little bit of more views and some posts where you got less views and also different engagements. What do you think it makes a post successful? I know you have been now on LinkedIn and you studied it a little bit, and you had, I think your biggest post was at 1.8 million. What do you think really made this post so interesting versus something like giving feedback where people were not so interested? What do you think are the differences?
Yeah, I learned a lot about the content. I think that there are different types of success for posts. One would be the number of impressions that you get, which of course is nice. When I got 1.8 million, I thought I'd crack the LinkedIn. But then the next post was only 3,000, so I'd obviously hadn't. So it tells you something about the message and whether you're reaching the right audience. So I've learned several things, and the following. The things that I think are important, the important messages I want to give, are not necessarily interesting to the audience. So some of the most important messages I've had have not been so many people looking at. On the other hand, the numbers of impressions is different for the amount of discussion that you stimulate, the number of comments and the people actually reacting to your posts. So even though you got 1.8 million people, there weren't that many people, there weren't all those people writing a comment. So there's a different way to think about success of a post. It's like quality and quantity. Anyway, with the 1.8 million, I was a bit controversial. I wasn't intending to be. I had a message which was, don't do a PhD unless you're willing to learn blah, 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 blah. And that was interpreted as, don't do a PhD unless you're competent in blah, 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 blah. So this caused a big storm. People were calling me names and thinking that I was people doing a PhD, which wasn't at all what I was intending to do. So that was a very important lesson, that you need to be very careful how you phrase your messages, because there is a chance that someone will misinterpret it or just they'll read it in not the way that you were thinking. That was a very important lesson. However, that's a great way to get a lot of people looking at a post if you're controversial, because then what was interesting there is to see the conversations that other people were having, whether they were for or against what I was saying, whether they agreed or disagreed and so on. This is what I think is the most amazing thing with LinkedIn, that you form this community around a single subject, and you're able actually then to see this process, how it develops in itself. And all of a sudden I'm a bystander of this process that's ticking along. So that was one thing. The other thing is not to get disappointed that if the messages that you're giving are not well received, and not that a lot of people are seeing them, then maybe you're not telling the story the right way. So I won't give up on those messages, because I think they're very important. Giving and receiving of feedback, the prevention and resolution of conflicts. These are things which are very important in the academic world and occur a lot. So I think those have been some of the things that I've learned.
You said two very important things that I just want to comment on. First of all, storytelling, I think is very important. Tell a story. To your second comment, maybe you just need to package the message in a different way, because the message is important. You have been telling these messages all around the world many, many times, so you know that they resonate. Another interesting fact that I would like to comment on is the discussion part. I think LinkedIn really wants to I think LinkedIn is a bit different compared to other social media platforms, because it really wants to have these discussions. Sorry?
I wouldn't know.
Yeah, no, you wouldn't know, but I can tell you, like, I'm also not the most active on all different platforms, but I think LinkedIn really is a platform that encourages and likes when people engage in discussions. Because the whole point, when I started posting on LinkedIn, I always thought, you always have to be right. Just don't say anything wrong. But the reality is the following. I mean, there are 8 billion people on this planet. We all have different experiences. We all have different opinions. That doesn't mean that I'm right and you're wrong. It just means it's one experience and I'm sharing my own experience. But that means there are so many other people that have very different experiences and opinions. And this is something I value about LinkedIn, because it gives you, and this is also something you said, the discussion took on its own, but what it gives you an ability to learn from all these people about a subject that you're really excited about, and seeing the impact you can make. I'm thinking about you traveling around the world teaching over 8,000 supervisors. Imagine, like, now you have a platform where you can go and you can get these messages out to everyone who is interested, whoever falls into the category of an academic who cares about supervisor training, and they get access to this information, and you can inspire them and stimulate them to think in a certain way without you actually going there and formally training them. And I think that's amazing, like the impact beyond the classroom.
Sure. I mean, it's always fun to do those travels anyway. It's not that I don't enjoy those trips, but no, you're quite right. This is one way of actually reaching out a lot broader than you can. The important word that you mentioned was inspire, because when I'm doing any form of teaching, the one thing I look for in the evaluation of that teaching session is if someone writes, "You were very inspiring," because that's all you can do. People can get information from the net or whatever. You can listen to someone giving you that information, but inspiring people to think is the most important gift that you can do. So if you approach the subject area with your post, the whole point of LinkedIn is linking people together. So you're linking them around the subject area, linking them around the conversation, and it's really cool when people have different opinions. There can be cultural basis for that. We're global world. You can reach all corners of the world. So it's kind of fun, and that's what I think is the coolest thing of all. And so if you can inspire just one person to think in a way that they weren't doing, you've changed their day, and that's the impact that I want to have. Whether they believe what I'm saying wholeheartedly or not is up to the individual. But at least you've been you to ask yourself the question, and that's the beauty, and that's why following different people's posts and really engaging them on LinkedIn is the key, because then it changes your day. It gives you a new experience. It gives you a new thought, and that must be a gift to us all.
Absolutely. What has always been really cool for me is to see the immediate impact one can have, when you think about the impact in research or in science, it's often like years. You start a project, it takes many, many years until you actually see the actual impact. And like this, of course, is a completely different type of writing when you think about research writing until it's published, versus you can go out and you can actually make an impact in a different field, of course, but you can reach people and you can inspire them, and you can maybe inspire one person to think differently because they have read your post. And that's pretty incredible to me. And this is something that motivates me to come back, actually.
I mean, I've had people do, what's also nice about LinkedIn is other than the post and the interaction there, that people then will send direct messages to you. So I've had some very interesting conversations, on the side, just one-to-one with people. There was one student that was in a very bad situation with a supervisor that was not doing their job properly. And, and she made the decision based on what she learned from the post and the conversation we had to quit that supervisor, and move on because there were better opportunities. And, I think that's, then you can feel that you've maybe had a real impact on that person rather than just making their day. I don't need to hear people saying it was an insightful post or something. I'd like to hear them say, well, based on what you said, then I was actually able to do this.
Yeah, I think it's so cool. I think you found a topic not many people actually talk about, like supervisor training. And I can see, because I follow your posts, of course, too, and I can see it resonates with people. And I think it's almost like people are so happy that someone talks about it and that they get a platform for discussion, because I think there are a lot of unspoken feelings, and a lot of PhDs feel in a certain way and they never feel seen. And I think it really gives them a platform where they get validated, that the feelings they feel are normal, and that there are sometimes conflicts, and you are not alone in this journey. And I think this is something very comforting for the PhD students, and I think you can make a real difference in this way.
That's the whole idea of the mat, making a difference to really make a difference in people and their thought processes. But absolutely. I mean, the important thing is I'm not AI generated, and my texts aren't AI generated. They're coming from the heart, because I've had 30 years of experience of this. I've been a PhD student myself. Didn't have a very enjoyable time at the time, but learned a lot, and that's been really useful for me. And then I've been involved in doctoral education development at the Karolinska Institute for 30 years, and getting the chance to do that development elsewhere in the world as well. I have a lot of experience, and it's based on cases, and especially when it comes to conflicts between supervisors and students, and how to navigate that, how to get that. It's not really dealing with the conflicts, but how to make the most out of that relationship and that teamwork, which doctoral education should really represent. Then, of course, I'm able to base this on facts. And I think that has helped me. I'm not sure I'm a big star on LinkedIn, maybe just big in physical form, but the one advantage I had is that I already knew my stuff. I'm not having to learn this from the start, and I'm used to talking to people. So talking in text is more difficult than talking in real life, because you have to think about how you nuance what you say, because people might not interpret the written words the way you were meaning them to. It's a lot easier to convince people when you're talking face to face. You can read the body language. You can see, now I said something I shouldn't have said, so now it's time to backtrack or so. You can't do that when you're writing posts like this, and you only have to deal with the comments that come in the forum. But I think that's what's given me the advantage. People already know me, so when they start to see that I'm posting, then maybe that's what's attracted attention. And the MadFob hashtag, I have 600 people following that now, which is quite good for 6 months. I'd say I'm quite happy with it, at least.
No, thanks, Bob, for actually something I wanted to touch upon too, because when I go out, I always tell people about. I think it's pretty amazing how you just showed up on LinkedIn and how you do your thing, and it shows what you can do if you're very dedicated to creating content on LinkedIn. But of course, it's very important to mention you have already been quite established in the field, so you have quite a lot of authority. So not everyone will come in with the same authority, and this will give you a lot of credibility. So when people read your posts, they say, okay, he has the experience to talk about these things. That's why they might listen. That's why they might like. That's why they might follow. So it's really important to, of course, if you are a newly freshly graduated PhD student, or you are a PhD student at the moment, whatever you're going to talk about, it will take you maybe a little bit more time to build up this authority in a certain field, because you don't have the numbers of years of experience. It was the same for me. I mean, I moved from my PhD in immunology into working and helping PhDs transitioning into academia, a completely different field. I mean, I have the PhD experience. Yes, that gives me credibility, but there's so much more, and you need to build that. And I think there you had, of course, a big advantage because you already came in, you were quite known across the world for your supervisor trainings.
That's something I think is quite interesting because I've come into contact, of course, with lots of people on LinkedIn through my posts, and many of them have similar to me. They have similar profile. They're professors or they're involved in the leadership of universities and so on. But there's not so many of them that actually post themselves. There are a lot of academics out there with years and years of experience to be able to comment on all sorts of things, what's happening in the research environments, or what's happening with research now compared to the possibilities now are amazing. How AI and digitalization is going to shape university. There are all sorts of things. There are a lot of senior people. There are very few senior people that actually post. We have a professor, the rector of Örebro University in Sweden is very, very good at this. We have Sanders Bay, the dean of music there, there's some really good leadership posts, but otherwise the leadership posts tend to be sort of leadership experts that are sort of leadership experts for hire, which is very good because it's a way of actually, providing services to the masses. But I'm surprised how few senior academics are actually not actually sharing their wisdom, their experience, and comparing and contrasting with the experience that the next generation is coming with. It's different to our own.
I think when I look at LinkedIn in the development, it's not that I'm a LinkedIn expert, but my forecast is that more and more academics will come to LinkedIn. I think there haven't been so many, but I see them now coming up. And I think the more academics you see, the more you will see in the future because, being on there gives other academics permission to be on there too and makes them, oh, actually, I have something to say too. I'm an academic. So Bob is an academic. He has something to say. I can bring my perspective in too. So I think it encourages and it empowers people to say, I can do that too. And you need these role models. And I think that's why it's so important that we sit here and talk about it, because I want to say there are already a lot of academics and I see more and more coming. And I heard stuff like things like, thanks to people like you, we see that, we belong here too. I think is absolutely important that we become more and more. The community that we can build is amazing because when you look around, there are a few. I mean, I could name them all because I know them so well in a way. In this small academic LinkedIn space is something that is absolutely brings me a lot of joy to come back to every day and interact with them.
Sure, I think that you mentioned storytelling. Right, and storytelling is the most fundamental and historical way of communicating. In caveman times, you assembled in the evening around the campfire to discuss where had been the good hunting and so on. And that was the way that wisdom was passed from an older generation to a younger generation. The same with the clans coming together for the Viking kings. The parliament was an exchange of information and a way of then educating the younger generation how it's done. This is how we've always done it. And even when we teach in schools or in higher education, you have somebody that's experienced imparting the knowledge to the. So why not do it online? This is a way that you don't necessarily, as you already mentioned, you don't only get to meet your class and the people in front of you, but you get to meet the whole world, whoever wants to listen. And storytelling then is going to be critical in this digital age where the necessity for face-to-face interactions are actually, changing. They're not so necessary. You can take courses all over the world just from sitting in front of your computer like everyone's doing now if they're listening to our podcast, So I think that storytelling is going to become more and more fundamental because the more that AI digitalization and all these fantastic tools we have will do parts of our job as academics, as teachers especially, the more it will leave us time to do other things. And what AI can't do at the moment is tell stories based on this personal history that you have and personal understanding. So why not then convert that to a digital form in LinkedIn? It's a great way to share that.
Absolutely. And now, of course, you're talking from a perspective of someone who is higher up in the leadership and gives leadership trainings and supervisor trainings. But when you think about PhD students that might be listening or postdocs and they're very passionate about a certain topic or they want to talk about, their research in a layman language, LinkedIn provides a great platform too to tell these stories too. And actually, we talked about this before, Bob. I think like what doctoral education is lacking a little bit is how we as scientists communicate with a layman audience. And I think...
Right.
Sorry?
Yeah, very much so. It's so important.
So I think LinkedIn is a really amazing platform to practice. And for everyone who's listening and thinks that I'm a bit afraid, what will people think? Am I enough of an expert? Just get started. And remember one thing, you're not going there to tell everyone, I'm the one who has the knowledge and it's the eternal truth, whatever I say. Changed my mindset, and I looked at it from a point of, instead of me going and saying this is what I think, and kind of making a point and thinking, okay, people can agree or disagree, I more thought of it as one perspective, as one opinion, as one experience, and you invite people in to share their experiences and their opinions, because I think this is where the real value creation happens, right? It's not about shouting out something into the void. It's really inviting and hearing, how do you in Japan experience this, or you in Canada? So how do you guys do it? What's the standard there? So I think that's what makes LinkedIn really valuable for me. So I think thinking I don't want people to say anything about what I said is the exactly wrong way of thinking about it. You want people to say, hey, but here we do it actually like this. Have you thought about this? And I think the important thing is, and this I see a lot, is always about being respectful in the way we comment. And I think that's very important, that we respect that other people have other opinions. It's not about being right or wrong. It's just we have a different set of experience. We come from different backgrounds. So we will think differently about this topic,
Sure.
right?
That's the beauty of the platform, because everyone is allowed to have their own opinion. But I think you're completely correct, and keeping a respectful tone is quite important. One of the important thing, we talk mostly about creating content that other people look at, but the other side of the coin is actually commenting on other people's things, interacting there. And that's where it becomes actually most interesting for me, because then you're taking someone else's thoughts that have inspired you, and then you're coming with a comment to actually then start that conversation with them, which I think is really cool. But no, the tone of comments, obviously, there's going to be like a yin yang, there's the good side and the bad side. When I had this post that people thought I was a bit controversial, then, I was called the devil and I should be stripped of my professorship and all sorts of things. At the same time, other people thinking this is a really important message. So, there's always going to be a balance, but I think that one should respect LinkedIn as a professional platform. It's not Facebook. If I want to see pictures of people holding wine glasses on a Friday night, I can go to Facebook. If I want to see these outrageous statements or thought-provoking statements, I can go to X. But, LinkedIn, I'd like a professional conversation. And so I think that this is the thing. You're invited into lots of other people's thought processes. It's not just like trying to give your messages, but it's the exchange. And really, again, this is where the LinkedIn is. You're linking together different people. And I think the multicultural thing is extremely important, because especially in the academic world, we're very much focused on our local environment. Of course, your own university, and maybe at a national level at the very most, but otherwise globally, it's like, why would I need to worry what someone else is doing on the other side? But it might be that they're doing something that I could do myself here.
Exactly. And I think this platform, has it ever been easier to exchange thoughts and maybe concepts or things that work or don't work than it is right now, where you can literally go out, you talk about a topic, and you can invite people to share their opinions. And on another note, because I know not everyone who listens wants to become a big content creator, but just what you said, being a part of the discussion can be enough just to build a personal brand, to establish yourself as an expert in a specific field. And I always think of comments as a mini post. Every comment is a mini post, because if I leave a comment on your post and it's very thoughtful and it contains value, it creates value for everyone who reads it. So you don't have to be the next Bob Harris with #MadBob or the next Elena. You can simply be there and engage with people who do interesting stuff and have interesting conversations and learn. I love LinkedIn just for learning. I don't know, so many professionals share free knowledge on there, and I get inspired every day. For me, it's amazing. I'm like,
I think there's perspectives as well, and that's very much, again, thinking of my role within the leadership of the university, and thinking about the futures of universities and nationally what one could do, pooling resources, sharing a best practice and so on. But, I have lots of thoughts. I like to consider myself an ideas person. Maybe that's the real mad part of me, but I'm not mad crazy, but I have lots of ideas. And sometimes those ideas are sort of accepted by people and we discuss them, and sometimes not. It's very difficult then to come to say, well, I've had this great idea, I think we should do, ABC. But if I discuss that with colleagues all over the world, in different universities and different places, and they really think, well, let's see, a threat to education at universities, digitalization, AI, how are we going to deal with this? Then maybe I get like a consensus from other people that would actually then help me and say, well, it's not only me thinking about this, but I'm actually, I've been talking to a lot of people, and we actually together, we've come up with this idea.
Yeah, and I know what you're referring to, and I can just tell everyone to stay tuned because we cannot talk about it. We will have a separate episode about it, but we're actually cooking something really cool right now in the drawer. I don't know how you say. My English is a bit lacking
It's
some
just
words.
a way of actually, what's the word that they always use? Actionable. Having an actionable plan.
And through Huberman.
An actionable plan for then how to get consensus about development in the academic world. Yes, and that will be a venture that we could kick off now during the spring. So I'm looking forward to that. And I think that's like another useful thing. I mean, LinkedIn is useful for finding positions, contacting people. I'm in touch with a potential PhD candidate, for a position I'm about to open. I wouldn't have ever come across this person necessarily unless they responded to my ad. So it's like there are all sorts of different interactions one can have. And I think that's what makes it really, really fun. I've had some very old, like retired professors write to me and saying, well, I can resonate with things you're saying, or not the same, but I thought it was, I tried to do this 30 years ago and got nowhere. Good luck with it. So it's really, really cool. You get to meet people from all sorts of cultures, all sorts of ages, and that's the mix. When you actually see somebody's comment, you don't know who it is. You don't necessarily look at the picture. They've shared their text. You just go there. You don't know if they're old, they're young, whether they're from this country or that country, whether they're an academic or non-academic, but they've made a comment. It's up to you. That's a gift to you to do something with.
Yeah, I think it's so really cool when you think of LinkedIn as a big stage. Where do you ever get the opportunity to reach so many people, and most importantly, like-minded people, or people who care about the same things as you do? If I went out and I started to look without the tools that we have today to find all of these people that are so excited about the same things like I am. I met people from Japan, like from, all over Europe, that I would have never met in my entire life. And they all burn for the same things. And I think it's the same with you. You find people who care about the same things, and it builds this sense of community, belonging, and a group where you can actually have really meaningful discussions. And with this, Bob, we're slowly coming to an end. But before, I want to ask you one last question. So tell us a little bit about #MadBob. Because I do know a lot of people who have met you on LinkedIn or see your posts, they think this is probably a new invention, MadBob, but it's actually not. Tell us a little bit about MadBob.
Many years ago, when I first became director of studies, I was in charge of the doctoral students within my department. It was the very first time we had a meeting of the whole department, and I wanted to present myself. I was telling some personal details about things, about my history, academic history, and so on. And then I put up this one slide saying, I want to be mad. And this is a Department of Clinical Neuroscience. Part of one of the sections is psychology, psychiatry. So they're immediately thinking, as most people do, a sort of clinical craziness. But of course, it's not that. And making a difference is something I feel passionate about. When I was thinking that it might be useful to have a hashtag for LinkedIn, then Robert is a very common name, as is Harris as an Englishman. It's one of the fourth most common surnames. So that wasn't going to work. But a Mad Bob then gets people curious, because people automatically see MAD and think mad crazy, mad weird, as opposed to making a difference. So I think this is partly a sort of a cool strategy to try and hook people. But I think we all, we talk about impact. Impact is what? Impact is making a difference in someone else's life, causing them to think a thought that they wouldn't have thought if you hadn't interacted with them. So I think that, I've been teasing with I've been using the mad concept just locally, but now it seems to resonate with people, and actually really pleased to see people using it themselves in their own posts and so on. So I think it seems to be quite successful for now.
I guess that's the definition of an influencer. So welcome. No, but it's really like, I think people love your mad concept, and it's something that is unique to you. And I think this is also something I would encourage people. Find your own little, that makes you unique, something that is somehow, because we all are unique in a way. And if you can find something that makes you special and unique, this is really what will give you this edge as a personal brand, instead of just, going out and repeating the same messages over and over. Find your own little thing. For me, it's a pie chart. For you, it's the Mad Bob. And for other people, it's other things. But it's really, really nice to hear your story. We're coming to an end, and I could not have ended it better than with actually Mad and trying to make a difference in the world, across the world, not only locally anymore.
I think it could be Mad could be really a sort of an overarching synonym for what LinkedIn is. We're making a difference to each other across continents, across cultures, across hierarchies, across ages, making a difference, sharing and caring.
Absolutely. I love this. And with this, I just want to say, if you guys do not follow Bob yet, I will put his link to his LinkedIn in the show notes, and also follow the hashtag MadBob on LinkedIn, where you will get weekly insights or bi-weekly insights about everything related to supervisor training, PhD education, or leadership training in academia. And if you need a little bit more help in your own transition from academia into industry, check out our website. I just want to say thank you for listening, everyone. Thank you, Bob, for taking time, sharing your Mad Bob story. We could talk about this forever and ever. It's very, very interesting. And there are so many things we haven't even touched upon. I just feel I could sit here just like Andrew Huberman 3 hours later, kind of. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone. And if you liked the episode, please leave us a 5-star review, because it will help other PhDs find us more easily.